You'll never get anywhere with your dog training if you suffer with anxiety, unfortunately. It's something that you really have to get a hold of. To be honest, there's almost no point in trying to train because whatever emotions you're feeling, you're feeding to the dog. And depends how sensitive the dog is, depends how unbalanced they are, but you're effectively telling them that there's danger around. I see this so much with reactive dogs, where they've had an attack or been attacked, and people get anxious because of that. But the dog doesn't feel this. The dog is just, living their normal life until something reminds me of it, like a particular dog that's attacked them, like a German Shepherd or, a Staffy, whatever. They don't pick up on it, but they do pick up on you, and they don't understand that your anxiety is not about the outside environment. They're not thinking, oh God, Mum's so anxious today because she wants me to be good. They're just thinking, Mum's so anxious because there's danger. So it's going to make them on much higher alert. And the techniques, all the techniques, if you've watched my videos or other people's videos, whatever, you're learning, they won't work. They will not work for you if you're anxious, full stop. You really have to get a grip on it. And it's not easy. I completely understand that and feel for you, but I'm not here to kind of be wishy-washy about it either. It just won't work. You really have to work on yourself. So I don't really, medication for anxiety, I've never found that it works very well, and having met lots of people also anxious, because I suffer with anxiety quite a lot, but having met lots of people with anxiety, medication doesn't really work. The only thing that works, I'm afraid, is counselling. You may need different types of counselling. CBT is very good, talking through your problems. I do recommend this very good book. It's called There's a Hole in My Love Cup, and if you read that and do it properly with the journaling, it will change your life, quite frankly. Everyone in the whole world should read that book. It's so good. But there's no good being worried about it and ignoring it and trying to force the dog to do something that you can't even do yourself. I've even seen people using e-collars, which obviously I'm against, but e-collars are sold because you can control the dog remotely. That's really the first thing. So you don't need a lead. So you may be thinking something like an e-collar, vibration, sound, whatever, means that you're not attached to the dog. So the lead can't be tense and you're not feeding anything down through the line. It really doesn't matter because the dog is still connected to you. I don't mean even in a spiritual way or anything like that. I mean, they're so sensitive, and because they're pack animals, they're very much looking to see what's going on around them, including you. You're part of the pack, whether you like it or not, and they're there with you. It's like, why are we feeling anxious? And some dogs are more tolerant of it than others. Some are really unbalanced, and with unbalanced dogs, I see a lot of kind of Romanian dogs that are very, very sensitive, and a lot of them aren't naturally balanced. So naturally balanced means that they kind of know what to do at the right time, the right thing at the right time. And unbalanced just means they are on the side of either like too nervous, too fearful, too wary, or they're too boisterous, too excited, too over the top in your face. So most of them are not balanced, so they make poor decisions anyway. But they're also highly sensitive because a lot of street dogs are village dogs, so they're not domestic. But you can get all types of sensitive dogs, and dogs that are naturally guardian breeds, things like the Cane Corso, Tibetan Mastiff, they're always looking for danger anyway. So the moment they feel or see your body language or smell your emotion, because don't forget, dogs smell all your emotions. As soon as you have an emotion, your chemical changes in your sweat, and they can smell that. They're on the lookout for that, and then they're wondering what to do about it. They can't help themselves. Some dogs, that aren't naturally guarding will change their behaviour anyway with anxiety because they can't help it. They're, like I said, they're group family animals, so they're looking for what to do and how to get out of this uncomfortable situation that you may be, making, or, not trying to make on purpose, but you are the root of. The thing is with techniques and stuff is that techniques are very, very good, but you still need to have a good, solid foundational relationship. So an example of this is when I go to see people who the dogs are pulling or barking outside, right? The owners basically want us to go out pretty much straight away, show all the techniques, and get everything sorted like there and then. It's like, right, let's go out and do everything. It's like, yeah, sure, I can do that. I'm more than happy to show you the techniques, and it will work because I've got a different relationship to your dog than you have. And we have a variety of techniques as well. So if one doesn't work, another will. So I'm happy to show all that. That's fine. But it won't necessarily work for you because the dog has a different relationship with you indoors. So if nothing's addressed indoors, then it's going to be very hard for you to work outdoors because of the relationship, and anxiety comes into a part of your relationship. So if I have people that are kind of quite lax indoors, so the dog might be on the sofa barking out the window, or they're barking in the garden, or they're kind of like all over the owner without invite. If anything of that's going on, we pretty much won't get anywhere outdoors, not in the long run. Will on the day with me, not in the long run with them, because they're practicing it still. It's not a separate thing. It's just relationship has to go hand in hand with techniques, and anxiety feeds into your relationship, so it does need sorting out. And like I said, it's not just about dogs on lead. So tension in the lead, again, I've shown a very clear video of this with a little dog, when the owner had the lead tense or allowed him to lean on the lead, and he went nuts. He was screaming when a dog came up, versus I just kept going with the dog. It's I think it's a little cockapoo. He's a little kind of cream coloured cockapoo. If you want to look through the TikToks. But I just went with him. I just kind of let him have a run with this dog and stuff like that, because he's not aggressive, and there was no barking at all because the lead wasn't tense. So anxiety, people do tend to tense up and kind of hug the dog to them, and that creates a problem anyway. But I'm saying that it doesn't matter even if your lead is relaxed, because the dog is smelling, feeling, watching, seeing the anxiety come through them anyway. And this is, back to e-collars. Basically, I've seen a dog that was so family orientated, so guarding, so kind of wanted to protect, that even though the owner had the techniques and using an e-collar, which you'd think is easier, because it is just pressing a button. It's meant to be more technical than that, but essentially, dog barks, you zap it, basically. But it didn't care. It didn't care, and she kept having to use higher and higher zappage, if you like, until there was burns on the dog's neck, because the dog did not care about the pain. It cared more about the way she felt. It was so adamant that they were in danger. It was prepared to put itself through all the pain to protect its owner. That's a very strong-willed dog. Every aspect of a dog is a two-edged sword. Intelligence, yeah, you'd think, oh, this is great. Actually, it's kind of not great, because the dog finds stuff to do if you don't give it enough stimulation. Everything's a two-edged sword, including stubbornness, and strong-willed. Strong-willed dogs are harder to train, but they would die for you, if they've got that protective nature. So you've got to look at it both ways. And this is what this dog was effectively doing, because she could not control her own anxiety because the dog was so aggressive. And the dog hadn't started aggressive. It was just it had gone from excitement. The excitement had not been controlled. It had been kind of, led to frustration, and frustration leads to aggression. And then it just becomes a habit. I see a dog and I do this. That's how aggression builds. But her anxiety was too high. She couldn't do it. And she tried so hard as well. She didn't just use an e-collar. She tried all sorts of things. But the techniques would only work a tiny bit because the dog did not believe her. I saw another owner, which is probably the most anxious person I've ever met in my life, bless her, and I really felt for her, and she basically cried through the whole 2-hour session, and she knew it was her and stuff. Basically, it was a hound dog that kind of, when dogs get close to it, it kind of lunges and barks, and it hasn't done it all its life. It recently started because she's just having a spat of anxiety, but her anxiety is so high, like, all the time with everything, and this dog was so well balanced. And it might have nipped, but it wouldn't have gone any further than that. And it was so well balanced, but the level of her anxiety had turned it into something completely different. And yeah, we did the techniques, I showed her the program, but basically, until she raises her confidence, which I'll go into how to do as well, apart from getting a good book, it just won't work. Raising your confidence is stuff like, so her problem was particularly kind of around dogs, right? And I said, I let the lead go kind of fairly long, really. It's a 6-foot lead, so the dog can have some freedom. And she said even that made her feel sick. So that's the kind of thing she'd have to practice on, like just walking near dogs, just walking near them where there's no chance of the dog coming up, just so that she can get better. And this is, if you are anxious, this is what you've got to do. If you're anxious about a place, go to that place when there's no one there, so that you can get over it. Or if you're worried about dogs coming up, go to a place where there's dogs in the distance, very much controlled, so you can see what's going on. You've got to raise your own confidence almost before you can then step in back where the dog's level is. The dog's level is almost always going to be exceeding your anxiety anyway. So you're almost playing catch up to the dog, and then you've got to push onto the further bit. But raise your own level and take it slowly, just as you would training your dog. Don't push yourself too far. The last thing I want to mention about being anxious, and again why it doesn't work, and like I said, I do fall short of this as well, because Flicker's she's very reactive, but she's only very reactive when a dog's about 1 foot away from her, and she turns from nothing like happy confident Flick to a tiny bit of tension to full on in your face, snarling, lunging, punching with a muzzled head. It's really extreme, to be honest, and it always makes you jump as well because of the noise. So you're kind of preparing yourself for that. But sometimes I've been letting her kind of have a sniff on dogs. She's on a ban currently because she's kind of been ploughed into by a Labrador several times. So she's not Chuck. If you think it's Chuck, it's not Chuck. It's Stranger Labrador, and it's upset her. So I want to give her a clear road of no dogs for 6 months. But when we do training, I let the lead go long, and I'm there with her with relaxed lead and letting her sniff, and I'm really watching her body language. For her tell, the only tell that she has is really that she pauses, because she's quite uncomfortable anyway. Tail's low, not tucked under, but there's a pause about probably a quarter of a second. So if I can catch her then and redirect her, it's fine. But it's really hard. It's really, really hard. And I have been known to pull her away before she's even reacted. Which is why, to be honest, on a personal level, I don't like using aversives like e-collars, because if you e-collar a dog and the dog hasn't even reacted, you're really giving them mixed signals for stuff. So, dog reactivity, especially most dog aggression's fear anyway. So it's not something that I like to use or encourage using, because owners make mistakes. You're always going to make mistakes. But trust me, pulling a dog away when they could have had a nice interaction is far less of a mistake than electrocuting a dog when they were about to have a nice interaction. But anxiety does do that. You do second guess yourself rather than let things happen naturally. I'm always talking about people about timing, like your timing's too slow, but with anxiety, your timing's always too fast. You're kind of stopping stuff before it happens, and you do have to allow your dog to go in the water a bit, go in the deep end a little bit when you're ready, like Flick. The last bit of the program's quite hard because you're so close to another dog. And then if you're anxious, you're worried about upsetting the owner and what's going to happen, and it's really embarrassing and it's loud, it's going to make me jump, and you're kind of getting into your head, so you're just awaiting, and then it's like, no, right, let's leave. But your dog isn't learning anything. So anxiety can prevent your dog learning, as well as getting the timing wrong and feeding your dog the wrong energy. You're much more likely to avoid these learning periods, which is really important. Another thing I'll mention with Flicker, because this happened a couple of days ago, which has really prompted me to do this podcast, really. So this is the situation. So me and Flicker, we do the school run. She looks just like a happy normal dog. You'd be forgiven for thinking you could go and stroke her, because she looks very friendly. She stands next to the people, the kids, a bit scared of the scooters, and will kind of start darting around like a maniac when one of those comes close. But other than that, she looks pretty calm. So I was talking to somebody on the road, and triggers for wary dogs, including Flicker, are people in hats, high vis, tall people, fat people, I'm afraid, men, and things that are unusual, basically. And this person was overweight, so it would normally be quite a trigger for her, on interaction only. So we're all standing there having a quick chat, 5 minutes. Everyone's ignoring the dog. She's fine with this. And then the person bends down, crouches down, which again can be quite a threat to dogs, because now you're their level and it kind of looks like you're stalking them from the dog's point of view. It's a bit direct, especially for nervous dogs. And she used this cutesy voice, like, come on then. And I felt my heart go, and I just kind of let it happen. And Flicker did a calming signal, which is blinking, just walked over to her to get a fuss. And I don't know if it was just because of this coincidence, because Flicker does give quite a lot of eye contact with me with all situations, or maybe that I flicked the lead, like maybe I was getting ready for a lunge, because this is the thing with Flicker. Someone can be saying hello to her, then her eyes go jet black and she'll raise her lip, and then very quickly she'll nip. Reactions with people are nowhere near as strong as dogs, so, because she's had more bad interactions with rude dogs than rude people. But this is what I was waiting for. So around this time, she gave me this side eye. So what happened was she was a very relaxed dog that was just enjoying a fuss, and then, like I said, either because of my attention or just a habit where she looks up at me quite a lot, she looked at me at the corner of her eye, and I saw the white of her eye, and I could do nothing but look away, which was very, very difficult because anything else I'd have given her would have been anxious, right? So I had to do a calming signal. So the best calming signal is a head turn away. If you don't know calming signals, check out my site, and it's literally got a whole thing on calming signals and all the shapes that they make. But turning of the head as though they're looking the other way is a really strong one. And if I'd continued looking at her with the tension I was feeling, which I wanted to look at her to see what was going on. I desperately wanted to look at her so I could move her if I needed to. And I don't advise really looking away from a reactive dog because you've got to get that timing right, But I had to, because I knew I had to give her a calming, so I had to give her something. So I left the lead relaxed, which was painful, and I just turned my head away, and I closed my eyes as well because that's a calming signal. So I just took a breath and just turned away, and then when I looked back, she relaxed again. But she was looking for my signal, and my signals at that point in time, I did right, but potentially they were really bad. If I wasn't a trainer and my instincts weren't there, I would have easily given her the wrong body language. I had to look away, I had to do the head turn, I had to shut my eyes, and it just gave her enough of a. That's the calming signal. Is like they use it for either you calm down, so I don't want this energy, you calm down, or it's I'm not a threat. So so that's what the calming signals present, depending on the situation. So for me, I was doing it to her in I hoped she perceived as there's no threat. And it worked, and it was fine, and it was a lovely interaction with Flicker as well. There was no food involved. It's not something that I've worked on a lot with her because she's had so many problems her whole life, and in the end, it does kind of going through everything does wear you down. You run out of time for certain things. Priorities take over. So getting her used to strangers is not something that I've particularly done. We've toned down a lot of the barking in the house when strangers come in. She's a lot better with that, but I'm doing it ad hoc, if you like. I'm not going looking for people. I'm not telling guests, come over and feed the dog ham, which if it was a big problem, that's what you'd do. So it's not something we've looked at because we've had to look at so much. But it was a wonderful interaction. I'm really pleased that she got it, because that's all you want from fearful dogs, really, is that everything that they're wary of or makes them scared is a good thing. Apart from traffic, I don't mind dogs being scared of traffic if they're not chasing it. It's a healthy fear. But yeah, it was lovely, and my anxiety could have really messed it up. So this is what I mean, and I do this as a living. I've had Flick for 9 years. I'm used to these situations, and even my anxiety can flare up. So you've got to really be aware of it and just tone it down, and you can't say to someone, don't be anxious. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying you've got to deal with it. You've got to find a path to deal with it. Your dog will never get better if you don't. So you've got two choices: do nothing, try nothing, and live with your anxiety, which is horrible, and your dog's anxiety, which is also horrible and not relaxing. Or you get on a path and you're like, right, I'm going to do this. And counsellors do help. I don't know, if you've tried one or two, you haven't tried enough, basically. You haven't even found someone that fitted, or you haven't done what they've asked. You've really got to look internally. It's not just a case of kind of listening to someone. You've got to look internally. Why do I feel like that? What's that related to? When did I feel like that as a child? You've got to open it all up to sift through the rubbish, and then you can work through it. But yeah, I know it's a long road. Really appreciate that. But yeah, if you get hold of that, you'll be able to get a much better influence over your dog and just have a nicer life, really. If you're interested in more videos or stuff that I do, I am on TikTok. I usually put my TikTok videos also on Facebook and Instagram, so just search Fawn Dog for those. And the main website is fawndog1to1dogtraining.co.uk. Thanks for listening, guys.